For the latest film interviews, reviews, and everything making news in pop culture, subscribe to Film Companion now.
We were shooting in Shimla, and in the morning I went to his room because I used to go sit and have coffee with him in the morning. And I walked into his room, and he was in this lungi and he had the small glasses on his computer, and I found that very cute from behind his visual and his chai. And so I said, "Chitton, what are you doing?" And he introduced me to this website called Pink Villa. All right. Now, I didn't know what Pink Villa was. And apparently at that point it was very famous. Now, obviously, we all know what Pink Villa is, this site that puts up all these photographs of celebrities and stuff like that. So I said, "What's this?" He's like, "Pink Villa." I said, "What's Pink Villa?" "The only way I can tell what Ranbir is doing." So, I was like... And I'm like, this guy, he's amazing. He had no filter. He would just say it. I'm like, really? So he's following Pink Villa to know what Ranbir is up to. I found that so sweet.
Amazing.
Yeah, and I really miss him. I've done close to 50 interviews promoting the film, Anu, and that's the first time somebody's asked me that. And firstly, if I may just say so, that I said, and I tweeted what I tweeted a couple of months ago when I finished seeing it, purely on impulse, because I just felt that that's what I wanted to do, and that's how I felt at that point of time. There was no ulterior motive to it. I genuinely liked the show very much. I very honestly believe, in my very limited capacity to be able to judge these things, that it was wonderfully, wonderfully written, beautifully directed, and stupendously acted. And yes, the cast was helmed by Prateek, who was fantastic, but the entire star cast was just beautiful. And for a team to put together a product like that, I thought, and as I said, was just a fantastic achievement. And I genuinely meant it. When I was told about the show was once the trailer had come out. I was completely unaware that a web series called Scam 1992 was being made. And when the trailer came out, that's when somebody from my office told me that there's this trailer, you should see it. And obviously, as an actor, as somebody who's part of a film that has worked really hard, and also for a film which is ready and waiting to be released, I was a bit concerned, because I'm like, hey, it can never be good when two products on similar grounds are being made. That's the God's own truth. As soon as it came out, I was busy shooting, actually, and I couldn't get to see it. I was completing a film called Bob Biswas. And as soon as I got some time, I saw it, and I saw it almost in 1 or 2 sittings. And very honestly, I felt 2 things. I started the show saying, okay, what is this going to be? Am I going to be in trouble? And I started the show, and after the first episode, I was so relieved. And relieved because I realized that, okay, my product and my film is very different. Look, we can talk about the analogies between a web series and a movie. I don't want to bore your audience with that, but I've said it ad nauseum. They're 2 completely different disciplines, starting from the writing to everything. And I've made a web series last year, so I know what it takes. I've never said publicly that this film is a biopic on anybody. I've always said it's a dramatized, fictionalized telling of a period of time in India and the Indian economy, and the people that kind of, in a sense, directed how India is today economically. Like a lot of what my character Hemant Shah does in the first half is actually inspired by Kuki Gulati, my director's father, and actual real life incidents that he did, because he also dabbled in stocks, etc. Kuki Gulati, my director, actually worked in the stock market in 1990 and 91. Straight out of college, his father put him there. And so we brought in a lot of that. And plus, I think once they saw our trailer, they see that this is a film that was made more as a big screen spectacle, which is what it was originally intended to be, to release in theaters. We finished principal photography in December 2019. then the lockdown happened in March, and in about mid-April last year, Anu, Ajay, who's the producer and obviously a dear friend and also my neighbor, so we both had a bit of a roof-to-roof chat, and he said, look, there's a lot of uncertainty about what's going to happen with this lockdown. At that point of time, in April last year, I mean, we were literally in the throes of it and nobody knew what was going to happen. So he said, we don't know when everything's going to open up. And when it does open up, our theater is going to be available to be open. If they open, at what capacity are they going to open at? And then to top it all, are the audiences going to come back in? So what do you think about going the digital route? Also, what happens is, I mean, I don't know now, but till like 2019 at least, a lot of actors have in their contract that you have to take the approval of the cast and the crew before you go to a direct to digital release, because we shoot films for the cinema. So there was that slight technicality to overcome as well. And he decided this, and he said, look, think about it, because it's a big decision for both of us. And I just said immediately, yeah, let's do it. Because at the end of the day, nobody knew when the film would release. At least this way, we could ensure that our audiences would still get to see the film. So obviously, that was an idea that Rakesh came up with much later. That was, if you actually see, I'm actually quite a lot thinner in that shot, because I was shooting for Dostana actually at that point of time. And Rakesh had this idea of doing the scene with my father, which I now have the merit of him playing my grandfather, him playing my father, and him playing my son, all in one span of one career. So first I'm like, dude, how can you ask my dad to play my grandfather? He's my dad. He's like, nee, I need Avicii in my film and all. Because, Rakesh is a big fan and they've worked a lot together. So he put in that scene because originally Roshan was going to die.
Yes, yeah.
So we shot both the endings, and there was this big fight because Chintu uncle threw a tantrum. And how can you do this? How can Chintu uncle took off, and I was panicking because what people didn't know is I was in Sambar, and it was a 1.5 hour drive to the Jaipur airport, where I had to take a 5:30 p.m. flight to fly to Delhi because it was the premiere of Jodha Akbar, and I was newly married, and it was Aishwarya's first solo. I mean, we had Sarkar Raj before that. Oh, no, Jodha Akbar came first. It was Aishwarya's first release after I had the small Maruti van where I'm pretending to be dead. The doctor is going to be thumping my chest and got a bit too method of acting and it's really started beating me up. And Chintu uncle and there's all like 5,000 crowd around pushing and, all that chaos. And Rakesh and Binod ji used to just shoot it. Binod ji used to take time to set up everything because he set up multiple cameras and then that was it. He just shot it. And all this, and Chintu uncle is on the stand saying, how can he die? Ye kya art picture bana rahe ho? You have to have poetic justice. He has to come back. He has to live. You have to show that there's hope at the end of all of it. And I'm lying there saying, just please, I got a flight to catch, man. My wife is waiting. And this entire chaos is going on. And Chintu is fighting and Rakesh is very calm. He never reacts. Okay, let's think about it. I'm like, no, don't think about it. Take a decision. Shoot. Let's go. And the doctor's beating me up and actually jabbing me with the injection. I'm like, bro, just calm down, man. All this, Sonam is hysterical saying, Roshan! And, I'm like, guys, I need to get out of here. I missed my flight. I was late. I had to go for the second half of the thing. But eventually, the general consensus was, let's shoot both. So there's one, Roshan, and I'm like, ugh. And then cut. Okay, take two, Roshan. I get up. Okay, got it. Okay, I'm out. And I left. So once they decided to go with the coming back to life, which I don't think Chintu uncle gave them much of an option, because I think Rakesh must have been petrified because Rakesh is actually Chintu uncle's neighbor as well in Pali Hill in Mumbai. So he edits right next to his house. So PSB, his wife, Bharti, her editing room is adjacent to Rakesh's house. And on the other side is Chintu uncle's house. So I'm pretty convinced Rakesh was continuously looking over his shoulder that when is Rishi Kapoor going to come in and fire me for changing the ending? The point is, when I was wanting to become an actor, my father was going through severe financial troubles with his company. And he couldn't afford to launch me. I still remember a very sacred conversation I had with my father, after which, we both, as father and son, decided that, we need to just pull up our socks and really work hard. And I remember this was around 4 or 5 in the morning, and he'd called me up to his study and he said, look, nothing's working. I got to get back to basics. I'm trying to act over smart. I believe when you're stuck in life, just go back to basics. I'm an actor. Let me just do that. And I said, okay, I'm with you and I'll support you in whatever you do. I mean, I was a production boy at that point of time. And I went back to bed, and he actually went to the gym. And he said, I'm looking old, I'm looking haggard, I need to start looking good. It's an audio visual. He went to the gym, finished the gym, came back, and then he walked across to Yash Uncle's house, Mr. Yash Chopra's house, and asked for a job. And Yash Uncle signed him for Mohabbat Day, and that really kind of turned things around for him. There are several lessons in that. One, when you're stuck, go back to basics. 2, nobody's big enough or small enough to ask for a job. 3, to get you up. At that point in time, my father was so busy trying to get a job himself. I mean, how is he going to get me a job? A lot of Ravan actually that we did a lot of prep on didn't actually make it to the final cut. I don't know if I've told Anu this, but okay, I'll say. You've seen Ravan or you saw Ravanan?
I've seen Ravan and Ravanan both.
Okay. So people never really understood my character. They're like, why is he always hitting his head and doing chaka 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 chaka, kept doing that. And they're like, ye pagal kyun ho gaya hai? What Mani's original thought is he has 10 different voices in his head, which represent the 10 heads of Ravan. So we had actually enumerated them. And are you on Twitter at all?
Yeah, I just don't follow anyone.
Okay, so if you go to my homepage, all right, the piche ka jo photo hai, the back one, is a black photo of Ravan with several different characters. Those were actually the 10 heads of Ravan that we'd created. So there was Bira, there was a teacher, there was a philosopher, there was a poet, there was a warrior, there was a clown, there was death. So we had made all these 10 heads, and we had done slightly different looks. So when the film actually came out, there were posters of me in different looks with different colored faces. So they all had different faces. So now whenever he was in a situation, if you see in Ravan also, most of the time in a scene when something is happening to Bira, Bira turns like this.
Yeah.
Right? Even his introduction shot, he's in the boat with Aishwarya and it's raining, and he turns like this with the stick and he points it at her. When he turns, what actually we had shot was these 10 heads come out like that. And they're all talking to him. So the teacher is telling him to do the morally correct thing. The joker is joking. The warrior is saying, Mardo. And he can't take it. So he's like, just get out of my head. And they all start disappearing. And the last head that stays, he becomes that guy. And that's how he reacts. There was a very nice scene where I've kidnapped Aishwarya, and she's sitting by this rock, and she's looking at Bira, who's practicing with the Urimi. And they roll in his brother-in-law in a drum. Okay? And there was this wonderful actor called Faisal, and they roll him in a drum. And he says, and he looks at him, because, my sister is dead and he's abandoned her and all that. And he looks at his watch and he says, I gave you this watch. And he chops his hand off. But before that, there's this thing where he's practicing with the Urimi, it looks like that. The original sequence it's actually an action sequence between Bira and all his other heads. And he's slowly, getting rid of them. And the last one, because he's fighting, is the warrior. The warrior is violent. So that's why whichever stayed on. So that's originally how we thought of it. And we shot a lot of it. But Mani wasn't convinced with it. He said, no, I'm not happy with the treatment. And he cut that entire thing out. And at that point, I remember telling Mani, I said, Mani, I'm not going to question you and Nani sir, who were the editor. But the point is, if you cut that out, my performance goes out of context, because now people don't understand why I keep banging my head and going, all that kind of stuff. But he was very convinced. And I'm no one to question him. But that we prepped a lot on those characters, But can you imagine for a director to have that thought and to execute it, and then have to have the foresight and the guts to cut it all out? It's unbelievable.